Now, Texas Rangers, I'm told, have not found anything and no sign of foul play.
13-year-old who disappeared 11 years ago in Colorado City, and now, just a few days after the 11th anniversary of her death, there is an indictment for her murder.
And there's still no sign of her. When I visited with the Dunn family this morning, I saw Texas Rangers scouring through Haley's room. If we take a look over here, this is the window to her bedroom.
Who killed Haley Dunn? It's a question we've all been asking for more than 10 years now.
The bedroom door was closed. It was always closed when she slept, not the casual half shut of a child who had grown up feeling safe, but the deliberate weight behind the latch closed of someone who had started paying attention to what was on the other side of it. She had begun doing this in the months before December 2010. She had not told her mother why. She was 13. She ran cross-country at her middle school in Colorado City, Texas. She texted her friends constantly, long ones, full sentences, the kind that require real thought on both ends. She called her grandmother every few days, not because anyone made her, but because she wanted to. She had opinions about music, about the boys at school, about what color her room should eventually be, about what she was going to do when she was old enough to make her own decisions about everything. She had plans. She had things she was looking forward to. She had a father across town who waited for her the way good fathers wait, with the door unlocked and the light on, and an assumption that she would walk through it. She had also started telling her grandmother things that she was not telling her mother. On the afternoon of December 27th, 2010, Haley Dunn walked out of her house and said she was going to a friend's place. She had said it before. There was nothing unusual in the phrasing, nothing in her voice that her family would later recall as wrong, nothing visible on her face in the last moments anyone who loved her could account for. She left the house. She walked out into a cold Texas afternoon. She did not arrive where she said she was going. When her family began to call, no one answered. When police began to ask questions, the man who had been alone in that house with her before she left could not keep his story straight. This is the case of Haley Dunn, and by the time this video reaches its end, 3 questions will follow you out of it in a way that no courtroom has managed to close. The first, the man who was in that house on December 27th had already been reported to police before that day, not by a stranger with an incomplete picture. By people who knew him, who lived near him, who had watched him from close enough to see exactly what he was. Those reports went somewhere. What happened to them after they arrived is a question this case does not answer cleanly. The second, on the morning Haley went missing, the man who had been in that house sent a text message to her mother. The content of that message did not surface publicly for more than 11 years. When it finally did read aloud in a courtroom, entered into the trial record, confirmed under oath, it recontextualized every press conference, every interview, every public statement made in the years between December 27th, 2010, and the morning the jury returned its verdict. The third, when investigators asked that man, directly, where he thought Haley might be, he answered. He named a county. He told them exactly where to look. He told them, without qualification, who they should suspect. The polygraph examiner who documented those responses noted that both answers indicated truthfulness. That man walked out of the examination room, refused to continue, and was not arrested for 9 more years. Hi, welcome to my channel. These are the cases where the danger did not come from outside, where the threat was already at the table, already in the house, already there when the lights went off. If you value primary sources, detailed research, and the kind of narration that does not waste your time, subscribe. Let us get into it. Haley's mother was Billie Jean Dunn. Her mother's boyfriend was a man named Sean Adkins. He had been in and out of the household for some time, and by December 2010, he was living there. Haley did not call him a stepfather. People who knew her said she had never thought of him that way. What she thought of him, by the months before she disappeared, was something she communicated in pieces to her grandmother, not to her mother, in the careful language of a 13-year-old who had started keeping a kind of private ledger of what was wrong inside her own home. What she had told her grandmother Connie was specific. She said she would see Sean's shadow under her bedroom door in the middle of the night, not passing, standing. She told Connie she was afraid he would enter her room while she slept. She said it plainly, the way a child says something frightening before they have fully learned the weight of what they are naming. She was not dramatic about it. She was factual. She wanted someone to know. Connie heard it. Connie held it. What Connie did with that information, whether she brought it to Billie Jean, and if she did, what Billie Jean said in response has not been established completely in the public record. What the public record does establish is that on December 27th, Haley was still in that house. Billie Jean had left for work. Sean Adkins was there with her. Sean had told Billie he had been fired from his job at a power plant in Snyder, roughly 40 miles from Colorado City. He said he planned to drive to his mother's house in Big Spring that morning to sign up for unemployment benefits. He gave a timeline. It was detailed. It aligned with nothing that cell phone tower data would later confirm. At 6:10 in the morning, Sean had left his place of employment in Snyder. What investigators later confirmed after speaking directly with his employer was that Sean had not been fired. He had shown up at 6 o'clock in the morning, purchased a drink, returned his uniform, and quit on the spot. He drove away at 6:10. He had told Billie he was fired to avoid a confrontation. That lie, small and domestic and almost understandable in isolation, was the first of many, and the cell phone data waiting behind it was not small at all. At 6:35 in the morning, Sean's phone was pinging off a tower in Colorado City, not in Snyder, where he had just quit his job, not on the road toward Big Spring. In Colorado City, the tower that covered the street where Haley Dunn lived. He was not 40 miles away. He was there. On January 6, 2011, investigators administered polygraph examinations to both Billie Jean Dunn and Sean Adkins. Neither one was able to complete the first scheduled attempt. Both were under the influence of narcotics at the time of testing. Billie later stated that she had taken a lawfully prescribed anti-anxiety medication. Sean's conduct during the rescheduled sessions was documented in the case record in detail. He exited the examination room a minimum of twice. He completed only the first stage. On his third attempt, he told examiners that the process had become a witch hunt. He said investigators were attempting to pressure him into confessing to something he had not done. Before he left the room for the final time, he answered 2 questions. Investigators asked where he thought Haley might be. He said, in Scurry County. They asked who police should be looking at. He said, both of us. The polygraph analysis indicated that both responses were truthful. He then refused to continue and did not return. Scurry County sits adjacent to the area where, more than 2 years later, human remains would be discovered in the vicinity of Lake. Remains that would ultimately be confirmed as those of Haley Dunn. He named the county before anyone had found anything. He named it as the place where she was. The results of Billie Jean Dunn's second polygraph and Sean's completed stage 1 both reflected that deception was indicated on several critical questions. On January 7, 2011, investigators formally named Sean Adkins as a person of interest in Haley's disappearance. On that same day, a search warrant was executed at Billie Jean Dunn's residence.
Well, Lane and Victor, we're going into day 9 in the search for Haley Dunn, and there's still no sign of her. When I visited with the Dunn family this morning, I saw Texas Rangers scouring through Haley's room. If we take a look over here, this is the window to her bedroom. Now, Texas Rangers, I'm told, have not found anything and no sign of foul play or any sign of her packing her bags and running away from home at this time. More than a week later, and still no sign of Haley. Her mother says it's frustrating, but she remains hopeful.
But I have to do nothing but hope that she left by herself and that she's going to come back to me, because if I don't cling on to that hope, I don't have anything.
Now, local authorities tell me they're following several tips at this time. Several agencies have stepped in, and the reward once again is $25,000 for tips that lead to Haley Dunn.
What investigators found inside that home was not what anyone had announced they were looking for. It was recovered on a memory device and on a computer at the residence, and subsequently on a computer found at the home of Sean's mother. The material was illegal. It depicted children. Evidence confirmed that both Billie Jean Dunn and Sean Adkins had been actively transmitting this material between their devices. The collection, as documented in the case record, included footage involving infants. The forensic examination of those devices also produced written communications between Billie Jean Dunn and Sean Adkins. Multiple messages referenced young girls in language that investigators documented as alarming. Multiple messages referenced Haley Dunn by name. Sean Adkins was taken into custody. Billie Jean Dunn was arrested and charged with possession of criminal material involving minors.
I want to thank everyone for coming this afternoon and giving me an opportunity to make a statement. First, I want to speak directly to Haley in case she's listening. Wherever you are, Haley, I'm looking for you. Hundreds of people are looking for you. We all want you home safe. I just want to see and touch your beautiful face. I really love you. I desperately need you home. And there's not a minute goes by I'm not praying for you or crying, wishing you were in my living room. I can't handle not knowing where you are or if you're safe. You're the most beautiful girl I've ever laid my eyes on, and I'm very proud that God chose me to be your mother. Next, I want to say if someone out there has Haley, please let her go. Just turn her loose, drop her off at a church, a school, police station, anywhere that she can get to a phone and call police or call her family. I've been flat out called a liar by some people. Others speculate on my possible involvement in Haley's disappearance or wonder if I'm covering up for somebody. Some people accuse me of withholding information and not cooperating with law enforcement. These things are not true, but I now feel that I have to defend myself from ridiculous accusations, slander, or defamation of character.
The arrest of a missing child's mother does not simplify a case. It fractures it into questions that pull in every direction simultaneously. But what came forward next did not clarify. It deepened everything that was already wrong. A neighbor of the family came forward and told investigators that on more than one occasion, she had personally observed Sean Adkins standing at the exterior of Haley's bedroom window, looking in. She said she had reported this directly to Billie Jean Dunn. She said Billie had taken no action. This was not an ambiguous observation. This was a neighbor describing a specific, repeated behavior at a child's bedroom window that she had witnessed with her own eyes, reported to the child's mother, and received no response to. This had been happening before December 27, 2010, before Haley walked out that door. While she was still inside that house, closing her bedroom door and watching for shadows and telling her grandmother what she was afraid of. Investigators also documented reports from other individuals in the surrounding area that Sean Adkins had made statements about young girls, statements that multiple witnesses described as deeply troubling, in language that had been clear enough that they had remembered it and repeated it to law enforcement. These were not vague impressions formed in retrospect. These were documented warnings. They had been communicated to the person most positioned to act on them. They had produced nothing.
That was my day. And then I came home around, I guess, like 3 o'clock. I got there, and Haley was there watching TV in the living room. And I went to me and Billy's bedroom, and she came in there and told me that she was going to her father's house and that she was staying the night with a friend. And then she left. And then I was there by myself for maybe an hour at the most. And then David and a friend came over, and I went to his room, and they were playing video games and so forth. And Billy called me and told me that that her relief got there and that she's going to get to leave a little early. So I was up there at the hospital in Snyder around 6 o'clock to pick her up, and then we came back. And then we went to bed shortly after that.
And this whole time you were thinking Haley was at a friend's house?
Yes.
About what time did she say she was leaving now?
What time Haley was leaving?
Mm-hmm.
I guess it was sometime in between 3 and 3:30 when she said she was leaving. It was like shortly after I got there. I'm not real sure about a time.
Does she normally call and check in every so often, or is it normal to not hear from her for so long?
It's pretty normal for her just to not call, because she usually does that, though, because If she does stay the night at a friend's house, she'll be back the next morning.
3 cellular devices were seized in the investigation, 1 registered to Billie Jean Dunn, 1 to Sean Adkins, and 1 to a co-worker of Adkins. The forensic recovery from those phones confirmed the messages referenced above and also produced the cell phone tower data that made Sean's stated timeline impossible to defend. Between 6:35 and 6:56 in the morning on December 27th, his phone was pinging off a Colorado City tower. He claimed to have been driving away from Snyder at that point. The data placed him at the location of Haley's home. Tower records eventually placed him in Big Spring, but not before 9:38 in the morning. Between 6:56 and 9:38, there is a gap, more than 2 hours during which the available tower data does not establish his location. He did not explain that gap to investigators in any version of his account. He had also told investigators that after visiting his mother in Big Spring, he was back in Colorado City by 3 o'clock that afternoon and saw Haley for the last time at 3:15, just before she walked to her father's house. Cell data placed him still in Big Spring at 2:40 that afternoon. Big Spring to Colorado City is 40 miles. That left him a window of 20 minutes to cover the distance and be where he said he was when he said he was there. When Haley's brother David came home at roughly 4 o'clock and found the front door locked, he could not get in. He knocked. No one answered. He entered through a window. Inside, he found Sean standing in the hallway. David later described his expression in the following terms: a deer in headlights. In a sworn affidavit, one of Haley's uncles documented a conversation he had with Sean in the aftermath of her disappearance. The uncle said he could not understand how anyone could bring themselves to harm a child. Sean's response, as the uncle recorded it, was, "It is like killing a deer." The uncle documented those words. They remained in the case file. The arrest did not come for 9 more years.
Haley's case was on national television, and Nancy Grace seemed to be a little hard on you. What was that like, hearing her question Billy like that?
I heard about it. I wasn't there when Billy was getting interviewed by her. I was talking to the Texas Rangers, but I heard about it, and it's frustrating, what she said about me, but it really doesn't bother me because, my main focus is just Haley, because we just want her to come home safe.
Does it hurt to think people would point fingers at you, the person who cares about her?
Yeah, it hurts. It does.
Describe to me the relationship between you and Haley.
It's really good relationship, and, I love her with all my heart, and I believe she loves me with all her heart, and we get along just fine.
See, is there anything else you want people to know about you and your relationship with the family at all? Because it seems like a lot of people are buzzing on the internet about it.
Yeah, as far as me, Haley, and Billy and David, we all get along just fine. And I would never do nothing to that little girl. I love her with all my heart. And I just wish for her safe return.
Billie Jean Dunn held a press conference. She appeared on camera. She appealed for information. She said she wanted her daughter found. She answered questions from journalists. She performed the role of a mother in crisis in front of every camera that was pointed at her. She did not disclose at that press conference or at any of the interviews that followed or at any point in the 11 years between December 27th, 2010, and her appearance on the witness stand in 2022. She did not disclose that on the morning Haley disappeared, Sean Adkins had sent her a text message. The message said Haley had been taken care of. He had also asked Billy, in that same message, to tell investigators that he had been at work all day. Billie Jean Dunn confirmed under oath that she had complied with that request, that she had provided false information to investigators about Sean's whereabouts, that she had done this from the morning of December 27th, 2010, onward through the press conferences, through the interviews, through the searches, through the vigils, through every year of her daughter's case. As the investigation expanded through early 2011, Billy's legal team challenged the validity of the initial search warrant. A judge eventually ruled the warrant invalid. The charges against Billy related to the illegal material were dropped. That ruling changed nothing about the content of what had been recovered, nothing about what the forensic examination of those devices had produced. and nothing about what investigators already knew from the communications between Billy's phone and Sean's. On January 11th, Sean gave investigators a revised account of the events of December 27th. Key elements of that account differed from what he had previously stated: the locations, the timing, the sequence of contact with Haley. The revisions did not resolve the cell phone data. They created new gaps. Shortly after that session, both Billy's attorney and Sean's attorney directed their clients to cease all cooperation with law enforcement. The community did not stop. Volunteers organized searches through the freezing winter temperatures of West Texas, returned week after week, spread out across the terrain, and refused to call it finished. By April 2011, investigators were still receiving 10 tips per day. The Texas Department of Public Safety ultimately documented approximately 2,500 tips between the beginning of the case and July 2011. 2,500 people who had seen something, heard something, suspected something, and picked up the phone to say it out loud. No arrest came. In August 2011, Sean Adkins was arrested on an unrelated charge: burglary and criminal trespass. He had attempted to break into a residence to steal a laptop and cellular phones. The home he targeted was in Haley Dunn's neighborhood. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison for those offenses in October 2011. He served his sentence. He was released in October 2013. He was named the sole suspect in Haley's murder in June 2014. He was not charged. The case stalled again, and the weight that Clint Dunn was living inside, a weight that had already lasted nearly 4 years, that had already consumed his public life and his private one, that had already cost him everything a father spends when his child is gone, and the people responsible for answering for it are still free. That weight continued. In April 2012, a man named Mike Murray was hiking in Sterling County, a stretch of remote rural West Texas situated close to Colorado City, near an oil well service road, in terrain that was rough enough that organized search teams had not covered it thoroughly. He made a discovery: skeletal remains. They appeared to belong to a young teenage female. The state of decomposition suggested to investigators that the body had been in that location since early 2011, which meant that while the searches were still ongoing, while the volunteers were still combing the fields around Colorado City in freezing temperatures, while the tips were still coming in at 10 per day, Haley had already been here, in this ground, in this county. Not the county where her mother had said she must have run away to, the county that Sean Adkins had named in a polygraph examination room more than a year earlier when an examiner asked him where she might be. The remains were transported to the Southwestern Institute of Forensic Sciences in Dallas for analysis. Identification was not immediate. Obtaining the necessary dental records required navigating the fractured personal histories of nearly everyone connected to this case, and the DNA comparison process carried its own complications. The family was told to wait. The family waited. In September 2012, Texas Rangers and the Mitchell County Sheriff's Department confirmed publicly what the evidence had indicated.
2013, local authorities were notified of human remains located near Lake J.B. Thomas in southwest Scurry County. The remains were sent to the University of North Texas Center for Human Identification for DNA analysis. On April 26, 2013, the Scurry County District Attorney's Office received written confirmation that the remains have been positively identified as those of Haley Dunn.
The remains were those of Haley Dunn. The manner of death was ruled a homicide. The medical examiner's full findings were not released publicly in their entirety, but Clint Dunn later stated that investigators had communicated to him that Haley had most likely sustained a severe traumatic injury to the head. A reward of $15,000 was offered for information leading directly to an arrest. The family was not able to lay Haley to rest until January of 2017, a gap of more than 4 years between the confirmation of her identity and the moment they could finally bury their child. They carried that interval alongside everything else. The expanded search conducted in the aftermath of recovering Haley's remains produced a second discovery. In the same area, not far from where Haley was found, investigators recovered the skeletal remains of another individual. Those remains were confirmed to belong to a 20-year-old woman named Haley Michelle, a young woman from the Big Spring area who had been reported missing in 2010. Her disappearance had drawn little attention at the time of her vanishing. Her case had not generated 2,500 tips. Her name had not appeared on the signs that volunteers carried across the fields of West Texas. She had been found in the same ground, in the same remote stretch of land, in the same county that Sean Adkins had named in that examination room when he was still trying to walk out of questions before he fully answered them. Prosecutors would later confirm that evidence had been developed linking Sean Adkins to Haley Michelle's death as well. Two young women named Haley, both taken in 2010, both found in Sterling County, both connected by geography and timing and the identity of the man law enforcement had already named as their primary suspect to the same person. In 2018, Clint Dunn stated to the press, "They are both involved. That is not even up for discussion anymore." He meant Sean Adkins and Billie Jean Dunn. He said it with the precision of a man who had spent 8 years reading every document, following every lead, and pressing every official he could access. He was constantly in contact with investigators. He was told, consistently, that the evidence was not yet sufficient to support a formal charge. What Clint knew and what investigators did not dispute was that Sean Adkins had been telling people, in conversations, in the years since Haley had disappeared, he had made statements to multiple individuals that directly indicated what he had done. Those individuals had, in some cases, come forward. The information had reached investigators. It had not yet reached a courtroom. Private investigator Erica Morse had been working alongside Clint Dunn since the earliest days of the case. She documented her communications with law enforcement officials. She delivered findings to investigators. She made herself available to every agency with jurisdiction. After the confirmation of Haley's remains in September 2012, every official who had previously been responsive to her calls went silent. They did not return her messages. They did not provide updates. For a family that had just learned their daughter's body had been decomposing in the West Texas dirt for almost 2 years, that silence was not neutral.
Texas mother, desperate to find her daughter's killer, is speaking out. It was 6 years ago when 13-year-old Haley Dunn went missing after leaving her father's home in Colorado City, that's west of Abilene. Her remains were found 3 years later, but her killer remains at large. Her mother, who is from Austin, says she has hope justice will be served.
I still want to believe every time you tell me that there's going to be an arrest soon. I keep that faith.
In 2019, Erica Morse began receiving messages from women across West Texas. Each of them had been contacted online by a man who identified himself as Casey. Casey was Sean Adkins' middle name. Erica requested the photographs and videos he had sent to those women. What she received was unambiguous. It was him. On October 28, 2019, Erica accompanied one of those women to the police department to file a formal report. The officer who received them told the reporting individual that she was fabricating the account. The woman who had come to the police department seeking to document a crime against her was told by a law enforcement officer that the experience she was describing had not occurred. Erica Morse published an open letter following that encounter. She stated, directly and publicly, that if Sean Adkins was not arrested, additional victims would follow. 2 more years passed. In May 2021, Erica Morse received a communication from the Mitchell County District Attorney's Office. They requested a meeting with her and Clint Dunn. At that meeting, they were told that within the month of June, an arrest would be made. More than 10 years after Haley Dunn was reported missing, 7 years after her remains were confirmed. They were being told it was finally going to happen.
I've been staying out of the way of law enforcement all this time. I thought I was doing the best thing by not coming down on law enforcement. And it's been too many years of no action. Nothing's been done. So I'm tired of waiting. The investigator over the case right now out of Scurry County, he told me one time, he said he doesn't care if it takes 20 years. to do this. And I do care if it takes 20 years. I don't want the person that hurt my kid that doesn't need to walk the street for 20 years.
You think that person is still out there somewhere?
Yeah. I think he's here in this town. Big Spring, Texas.
You think he's in Big Spring?
Mm-hmm. I know he was 2 months ago.
You have somebody in mind?
Sean Atkins.
You think it's Sean Atkins, the only named suspect?
Yep. And I think that Billie Jean knows something. She said too many lies. She's avoided too much. And she knows more than what she said.
What Clint Dunn had built toward that moment was not passive. In May 2015, he had filed a wrongful death civil suit against both Sean Atkins and Billie Jean Dunn. He had gone to state legislators, to senators, to members of the United States Congress, pressing every institutional door available to him. He had gone to the Texas Attorney General's office. He had documented everything. He had made himself impossible to ignore. A petition demanding that the case proceed to trial had gathered over 31,000 signatures. 31,000 people who had followed this case for years and refused to accept the administrative stillness they had been given as a substitute for justice.
Reaction from Colorado City tonight is emotional and also getting straight to the point. Sean Atkins is sitting in the Mitchell County Jail tonight, charged for the murder of 13-year-old Haley Dunn. She first went missing over 10 years ago. You know, this community, they have spent more than a decade searching for a young girl, searching for answers, searching really for justice. We are a step closer to that tonight. The arrest of Sean Atkins is what the community of Colorado City has been waiting on for a long time.
District Attorney Ricky Thompson, working in consultation with the Texas Rangers Unsolved Crimes Investigation Program, obtained a search warrant to collect a DNA sample from Sean Atkins. On June 13, 2021, that warrant was executed. Sean Casey Atkins was arrested and formally charged with the murder of Haley Dunn. He was held on a bond of $2 million. He did not post bond. Investigators stated, following the arrest, that Atkins had made admissions to multiple individuals over the intervening years, statements that directly indicated his responsibility for Haley's death. The charge was capital murder, which carried the possibility of the death penalty or life in prison without the possibility of parole. Erica Morse, speaking after the arrest was made, described Clint Dunn's decade-long sustained effort as a template, her word, for what an ordinary person is capable of doing when every institution that was supposed to act has not. Clint Dunn stated, "Right now, there are no words to define how I feel. We will let the trial speak the truth. Thank you to everyone who searched for Haley and to those who fought tirelessly for an arrest." On January 24, 2022, the trial of Sean Casey Atkins commenced in Mitchell County, Texas. He faced the charge of capital murder in the death of Haley Dunn. Among the witnesses called by the prosecution was Billie Jean Dunn.
The KCBD Investigates team, the Mitchell County District Attorney's Office, has released a single page from Sean Atkins' arrest warrant. He is the man police hold responsible for killing Haley Dunn in Colorado City. Big Spring police arrested him last month, but we don't know why. When KCBD requested the arrest warrant, we were sent to Mitchell County, and the DA there refused, citing Texas law, claiming it blocked us from access to this public record since it involves the alleged abuse and death of a child. So now, while we're waiting on the Attorney General to rule on this decision, in the meantime, it has been 10 days since our request for the entire arrest warrant and affidavit. We have only this part of the warrant so far, ordering any law enforcement agent to arrest Sean Atkins for the charge of murder out of Colorado City. But that does not shed any light on what led Mitchell County to that conclusion. So our Investigates team will keep pursuing your right to know about what police say led to the death of Haley Dunn.
What Billie Jean Dunn told the court under oath had not been disclosed at any point in the 11 years between Haley's disappearance and that courtroom. She testified about the text message she had received from Sean Atkins on the morning of December 27, 2010, the morning Haley did not arrive where she said she was going. The morning her brother came home to a locked door and found Sean standing in the dark of the hallway. In that text message, Sean had told her that Haley had been taken care of. He had also asked her, in that same message, to tell investigators that he had been at work all day. Billie Jean Dunn testified under oath that she had complied, that from the morning she received that message, she had known what it meant, and that she had gone on to tell investigators that Sean had been at work, that she had attended press conferences and given interviews and performed the appearance of a mother searching for her missing daughter while holding the text in her phone that told her the search was already over for 11 years. The prosecutor asked the jury to consider the full span of that silence. The defense did not produce an account that explained the message. After 7 days of testimony, on February 1st, 2022, the jury returned a verdict, guilty, capital murder. Sean Casey Adkins was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He was 38 years old at sentencing. When the verdict was read aloud in that courtroom, Clint Dunn, who had attended every day of the proceedings, who had driven to that courthouse each morning carrying 11 years of pressure, refusal, documentation, and the knowledge that every piece of it had been necessary because the institutions responsible for acting was not composed. He did not try to be. Billie Jean Dunn was not charged with any offense connected to Haley's murder. The civil suit Clint filed against her in 2015 remained ongoing as of early 2024. Now go back, not to December 27th, before that. Before the morning Haley disappeared, a neighbor had already stood outside and watched Sean Adkins at the window of a child's bedroom on multiple separate occasions and had taken that directly to Billie Jean Dunn. Billie had not called the police, had not removed Sean from the home, had not relocated Haley to a different bedroom or to her father's house across town or anywhere at all. The neighbor had done what a person does when they see something wrong. She reported it to the person responsible. That report landed without consequence, and Sean stayed where he was. Before the morning Haley disappeared, Haley had already told her grandmother Connie that she was seeing Sean's shadow under her bedroom door at 2 a.m. She had already said, out loud to an adult she trusted, that she was afraid he would come into her room while she slept. She was 13 years old, and she was making a deliberate choice to tell her grandmother instead of her mother, and if you think about that choice for a moment, about what a 13-year-old knows instinctively about which adult in her life will act and which one will not, then you are already in the middle of the question this case cannot close.
Things that Haley used to tell me about the man.
What kind of things?
She didn't like him. She didn't trust him. She was afraid of him.
I don't want to be here right now. I'm going to be here with you because I don't feel right with my stepdad.
Investigators recovered printed materials from the residence during the search, not 1 or 2 items a collection. Hundreds of articles sourced from the internet, accumulated and kept, covering serial killers, violent homicides, and murders in which family members were involved. Billie Jean Dunn, when asked about the collection, told investigators that she and Sean shared a general interest in true crime. She said many people had that same interest. Bank records from December 27th showed that after Sean picked Billie up from work at approximately 6 p.m, the two of them stopped at 2 automated teller machines. Billie withdrew a total of $140. She told investigators it was for groceries and gas. Investigators later established that the money was used to purchase narcotics. This transaction, the stops at the ATMs, the withdrawal, the narcotics happened on the same day that Billie Jean Dunn had received a text message from Sean that said her daughter had been taken care of. They purchased narcotics together. They went home together. As the months passed, vigils continued throughout Colorado City. Volunteers returned despite the cold, organized searches across the surrounding terrain, refused to treat the lack of an answer as a reason to stop looking. In a public communication, the Colorado City Police announced a shift in the official posture of the investigation. They stated they were now treating the case as though Haley was either under duress or deceased. It was a formal acknowledgement that the runway scenario had been set aside. They were no longer looking for a girl who had run away. The cell phone and bank records that had already been pulled were examined in further detail. Investigators also contacted Sean's former employer directly and learned that Sean had not been fired. His supervisor confirmed that Sean had arrived at 6 in the morning on December 27th, purchased a drink, returned his uniform, and driven away at 6:10. He had quit. He had told Billy he was fired because he wanted to avoid a fight with her. That small domestic lie, the kind that might be almost forgivable in a different context, was the lie that caused him to account for his morning in a way that his cell phone data would immediately contradict. The data placed him in Colorado City at 6:35, less than 30 minutes after he drove away from Snyder. His phone did not reach the tower range consistent with Big Spring until 9:38 in the morning. Between 6:56 and 9:38, there is a gap of more than 2 hours in the record. He was asked about it. He did not explain it. He changed his account of those hours between conversations with investigators, and each version conflicted with something the data had already recorded. His claim that he was back in Colorado City by 3 in the afternoon and saw Haley at 3:15 required him to have left Big Spring by 2:40, which the data confirmed he had not done. The 40-mile drive between the two cities covers a minimum of 30 to 40 minutes under normal conditions. He claimed to have made it in 20. He claimed to have seen Haley for the last time, spoken to her, watched her leave for her father's house, all within a window, his phone records made geometrically impossible. On March 17, 2011, investigators came to the residence to speak with Sean. Billy told them he was not there. Officers entered under an active warrant. They found Sean inside the home. Billie Jean Dunn was arrested and subsequently charged with making a false statement to police. In June 2011, she received a suspended 90-day jail sentence and 1 year of probation for that offense. She served her probation 250 miles away in Travis County, where she had relocated with Sean. They were living together during her probation. They separated in 2012. Billie later stated publicly that she had come to believe Sean was responsible for Haley's disappearance after both local law enforcement and the FBI formally identified him as a person of interest. That statement was made years after the text message, years after the morning she already knew. On January 12, 2011, David Haley's brother had been removed from the family home by Child Protective Services. Shortly after the discovery of the illegal material, a grand jury reviewed the evidence. Sheriff Toombs addressed the complexity of the situation directly, stating, "You have more than one person in the home in each case, so you have to make sure and verify who is going to be the one responsible." A laptop seized during the investigation was held at the police station. Haley's father, Clint, later stated that Sean's stepfather had gone to the police department and demanded the laptop be returned to Sean. It was returned. In the years between the discovery of Haley's remains and the arrest of Sean Adkins, Clint Dunn maintained a public presence on social media, continuing to post about Haley's case, continuing to appeal for information, continuing to refuse to let the silence from law enforcement translate into a silence from him. That sustained public presence eventually reached someone unexpected. An anonymous individual contacted Clint. This person had been in middle school during the spring and early summer of 2011. At some point during that time, they had come across several items. They had no knowledge of Haley or her disappearance. They had not thought to report what they had found to anyone. Years later, encountering one of Clint's posts, they recognized something. They reached out. The items they described, their nature and their precise location, were not made public in their entirety. What Clint confirmed was that they had been found in an area that had already been searched multiple times during the initial phase of the investigation. Evidence that had been present in a location that trained investigators had walked through had gone unrecovered for years. That fact did not produce accountability from any agency. It produced a tip relayed by a private citizen to a grieving father through a social media platform nearly a decade after the searches had been conducted. Erica Morse continued working. She had been making herself available to investigators since the beginning of the case, submitting evidence, requesting updates, pressing for movement, and receiving silence in return after Haley's remains were confirmed. In 2019, when the women in West Texas began contacting her about the man calling himself Casey, she built the identification carefully before she brought it anywhere. When she brought it to law enforcement and was turned away when the officer she brought the report to told her that the victim was lying, she documented that as well. She wrote the open letter. She continued, "What Sean Adkins was doing in the years between his release from prison in October 2013 and his arrest in June 2021 is not fully public. What is established is that he was living in West Texas, reachable, identifiable, and active enough online to be contacting women under a variation of his own middle name. He was not difficult to find. He was found, he was reported, he was turned away from twice. He was arrested on the third attempt at a report after a district attorney consulted with Texas Rangers and obtained a DNA search warrant. The timeline between the polygraph room where Sean Adkins said both of us and the moment Texas Rangers placed him in handcuffs covers 11 years, 3 months, and 6 days. There is a question that remains after the verdict, after Sean Casey Adkins was sentenced to spend the rest of his life inside a Texas correctional facility. After Clint Dunn sat in that courtroom and watched the jury return the answer he had spent a decade refusing to stop demanding. After everything that is documented, confirmed, and entered into the official record of this case, the question is about Billie Jean Dunn. On the morning of December 27, 2010, before the press conference, before the interviews, before the vigils, before the years of public grieving, Billie Jean Dunn received a text message from Sean Adkins. The message said that Haley had been taken care of. It asked her to lie. She confirmed under oath that she understood what it meant and that she complied. Sean Adkins is serving life without the possibility of parole. The criminal case against him is closed. The legal machinery that Clint Dunn forced into motion over a decade of unrelenting pressure has completed the arc it was designed to complete. Billie Jean Dunn was not charged with any criminal offense connected to Haley's murder. There is a text message that says "taken care of." There is a mother who received it and went on camera. The court has spoken. The question is still there. What do you call the person who gets that message, who reads those words, who understands them and keeps them, and walks out to face the cameras?